episode of CALCIO Chronicles. I'm Sheida, your football spirited language coach. As we're in the middle of the transfer window today, we're having a special guest joining us on the podcast, a football agent with a law background who recently conquered the challenges of the new FIFA agent exam. We're diving into the dynamic world of football transfers, exploring the latest rules and regulations that came into action just a few months ago, and they're going to impact this transfer window. So here is our special guest tuning in from London, Mr. Ugo Egenamba.
Hi there. Good evening, Sheida. Very glad to see you, so to speak, in this freezing cold night in London. Let me thank you very much for inviting me onto the CALCIO Chronicles. It's something Italian football anyway, something I've always enjoyed and loved. So definitely it is a pleasure. And I say hello to all of the guests, etc., and all of the people watching.
Thank you so much for taking the time in this busy schedule that you have. I know that during the transfer windows, you're always very busy. So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. For the all of our audience that they might not know you, could you give us a little bit of a background about yourself and how you got into the world of the football agency and becoming a football agent?
Okay. My name, as you know, Ugo Egenamba. Basically, I did a law degree. That's my background at Leicester University. From there, I moved on and progressed to do an international law master's, doing that at Warwick and Coventry universities. From there, to be honest, I've always had a love for football. So, although I've given you my legal background, I actually played in the semi-pro game over here for a team that your audience may well know, Barnet FC. It's a club that was once played for and managed by Edgar Davids, so to speak, who, as you know, played in Italy at some stage. Anyway, so with this history, I've obviously carried on my legal focus as a legal business mediator, working with several organizations, and an opportunity to come back into the sport I love came via the creation of Premier Footballers. I am a senior partner in there, and my long-time former work colleague, Mr. Paul O'Halloran, is the other partner. And together we have a vision to bring order and correct representation to certain players, all to a sport that we really love. So at this moment in time, we are at a stage where I would call ourselves now specialists, and we are focusing on really trying to get a hold of the market, especially with all the new changes and procedures that have come.
Yeah. Now, I know that in the past few months, all the FIFA rules and regulations have changed, and there has been a new exam. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on? What are these new rules and regulations? And why is it that you had to do another exam? Because I know that you were a football agent before that, but then you had to take this new exam. Can you tell us what's going on a bit?
Yes, okay. It's a very strange area, a lot of people will say. As you know, there's a lot of money in football, and it's arguably the world's most popular sport. So I think what's happened is there's been a lot of stories, and I'm sure you've heard of people earning huge amounts of money and holding different types of negotiations to ransom, so to speak. And agents have had a really very bad time in terms of publicity from this. So within all this, the last World Cup, which was held in Qatar, a meeting was held with FIFA and several other major stakeholders. And in this, they devised several ways to change football. One of them being regards to agents. So the new regulations introduce basic service standards for football agents and their clients. All right, and this includes a mandatory licensing system. So basically, it stops several different areas, such as multiple representation. It avoids things like conflicts of interest. For example, if you're an agent, you can't own another football club or work within the senior management of a football club because there might be a conflict of interest. And the key one, which I'm sure all of your guests would have read about in the papers and other types of media, will be the introduction on a cap on agents' fees. What does this mean? Basically means that agents will be told exactly how much they can make from working with their players and for successfully negotiating any types of moves with other clubs or even different types of commercial agreements.
Now, I've heard that a lot of agents, they were like super angry about this, especially the big agencies.
Look, all round, I would say yes. The big agents will obviously be annoyed because let me give you an example. There's some very famous agencies working with teams like Chelsea, which I'm sure again all of your guests will know, and they've earned huge amounts of money. Maybe they're working on things like 20-30% of a deal that might be worth 100 million, for example. So obviously that's quite a bit of money, and then they may still take something obviously from the player, so to speak. So obviously these agents, if you cap the fees, now let me give you an example. They wanted to cap the fees to 5%. The initial figure is okay, and there's also another sub area that says 3%, and then you take another 5% of a certain figure. The figure being in England anyway, 200,000. You will take 3% and then 5% after that. So it makes it very complex, number one. But if you work that out, 30%, and you minus this, give an example, forget the 3%. If you take 5% away, you are taking 25% away from them. So of course, the big agencies, you're talking about millions of pounds. And those agencies have staff that work for them. They have other support staff in things like media, as well as sub agents, etc. And now transfer that to a smaller agent that might do a deal for, I don't know, maybe 100,000, 200,000, which kind of like a normal deals. And you're telling that agent he can take the lower fee, which is 3%. And then after that 200,000, it becomes 5% of that. One, is complex, but two, you can see you are impacting that agent's standard of living, I guess. Now, you have to remember something, Sheida. Agents do a lot of work. And when I say a lot of work, forget the major players like Osimhen and players like this that are playing for Napoli. You have an ordinary player maybe playing for Sassuolo or whatever, and they might need things like documents for the last clubs they've been to. They might need accommodation found for them. They might need schooling for the kids. They may even need extra training outside of the pitch. They might have emotional issues and problems. Sometimes we've even had to lend players money because they've had problems. Find addiction places for them because maybe they've fallen into bad times or gambling, etc. And then we have to look at them clubs. There's a list of things. So when you start to
gambling problem here as well.
Well, exactly.
Just a few months ago in Italy, there was this big gambling scandal between the players of top teams. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I have, and it's a major area, addictions for players in that area. But when these kind of things happen and a club lets people go and everybody's looking to blame someone, well, where do the players go to?
Their agents, obviously, their agents.
They're the ones that stay.
Are the ones that fix everything for them.
Well, I am glad you used the word fixed everything, because when the clubs finish with them, they're having problems with their families. It's the agents that have to stick with them and think, can we help this player get back to the right mental state and then make them to a capacity where they can perform and then begin to make money. And then at the end of all of that, because of a lot of press, a lot of media, and one or two big agencies at the very top, they're now being dictated to, or in terms of how much money they can make, what they can do, etc. So yes, it has been a very strange time, and the impact of these new rules, I would say they are totally all over the place at the moment. Really,
Okay,
totally
so
all
do
over.
you think that they're going to change in the near future, or because I know that there were some protests with, between the from the agencies, especially the big ones. But do you think that FIFA is going to backtrack and change some of these rules and regulations to the old ones, or they're going to stick to their guns and try to proceed with what they decided?
Well, honestly, Sheida, there's been major publicized issues from the exam. Number one, I am somebody that took the exam. Although I'd started off earlier, after some debate, I think FIFA had said, "Look, you just have to just do the exam. That's the only way that it can move forward." So the exam has been taken. During the exam itself, the first one in England anyway, and I heard from several other regions, there was issues with internet connection, the
Oh,
routers. So the first exam was more or less cancelled, and everybody had to redo the exam the next time again. So there was maybe 5 days in between. As you know, we're all busy people, so you can imagine doing an exam. You're not sure whether you've passed it or not, and then they're asking you to redo that exam within 5 days. You know,
wow.
after the exam is finished, you're reading about legal challenges. Legal challenges have come from major ones from Germany, which
Oh,
is being upheld, and they're waiting for European courts to basically come in and make some kind of adjudication or judgment on that. You have also the Dutch agents. They brought a case forward. Although they lost, there was other cases brought, even in your own Italy. There's been issues, and the biggest agencies in the UK also brought an action, which they actually won on several points. Let me just explain. What happens is, although FIFA have the ultimate rule globally, they
yeah.
allow each nation or each national association to
Okay.
bring in their rules and harmonize them or connect them, so to speak, into their own rules and bring out that new FIFA rule, how it would apply in their own country.
So
Okay,
it's
so
going to be
then
different in each country. Like the rules and regulations will be different in Italy than they are in England.
let me give you an example. You have the Italian Federation, right?
Yeah, yeah, Fiji.
And obviously you have FIFA. So FIFA will make an overall rule. Go, everybody needs to follow this rule. Italy already has national rules that they follow. What
Yes.
they would make sure is that these rules basically mirror what
Okay.
FIFA put in place, so to speak.
Okay.
Right. So, for example, they said no players can, for example, sign for more than 5 teams in a season. For example, that's FIFA. That is. Then the Italian Association, if they have six clubs that they can apply for, they would now have to harmonize it in their own rules that only
Okay.
5 can come in. That way, they have now harmonized their rules with FIFA's, basically.
Okay. I understand. Now, another question that I had regarding this exam is that so basically with this new exam, so many of the I mean, because you told me I've heard before speaking with you before this interview that this exam is a very was a very difficult exam, very technical, and historically we have a lot of parents or family members that they usually represent players, certain players. So with
Okay.
this new exam, they can't represent their family members anymore. Is that true?
Sheida, I would say it's one of the very reasons why some of the rules and regulations by FIFA have been brought in. Okay. Um, I, as an agent, would say to you, the regulation of football is not a bad thing. What I've explained to you is some of the regulation and what they've done, including the micromanagement of fees, etc., is wrong. But we all know there are bad agents out there. We read about them every day. ones that are involved in some type of trafficking, ones that are trying to push their children in various different ways. Why? For money and not for the good of the player. FIFA's regulations are there to protect the player and ensure that the player's preservation and progression is at the very forefront of thoughts. So, in direct answer to what you're saying, it affects parents because it will not allow them to do this. They must take the exam, become regulated, understand the rules, and then they can represent, whether it be their son, their friends, or whoever else. So, in that part, that is good regulation.
No, no, I absolutely agree with you on this, definitely. How did these rules and regulations affected your agency and your players this transfer window?
It's a funny thing that you should ask this, Sheida, because remember I mentioned to you before that the FIFA's rules and the implementation are all over the place. This is an example. Because the top agents won the case that they took our own English FA to court with, they
Yeah.
identified several points or several areas that the FA were not allowed to put in place. These areas are the very areas that the English FA has tried to harmonize FIFA's global rules into English football rules for agents. So, how has it affected us? Well, one day before the transfer window started, some information was sent out, some correspondence saying that everything is basically suspended and we should go back to how we were working before. So, how has it affected the business? A whole load, and I use some colloquial language, a whole load of, how would I say, fluff and nothing, just confusion. And now we're just working how we were working before. The only difference being, and I mentioned to you, it's a good thing, is that there's some regulation in terms of you have to be licensed via the exams and then through your own national association.
Okay, okay, thank you. Now, one of the things that I've always been super interested to know is like, as a football agent, how do you build and maintain like this strong relationship with your players and as well as with the clubs that you of course and you negotiate the deals with?
Sheida, it's very hard work, and I must tell all of you, yes, you may see the pink shirt, the tie, etc. Listen, the only way to move forward in football at the beginning is to get what we call here in England down and dirty. And that means getting to watch the matches, understanding the football, getting to the places where the players are so they can see you and understand you. So that's the only way to build. The key word is build. To build, you've got to get a client. And when you do a good job, things will be kind of moved on. We call it organic marketing here, where people will talk about it, move you forward, refer people to you. And of course, the other side of it is marketing, marketing, marketing. We're always marketing ourselves, going to conferences, speaking with people. Not everything leads to a deal. Sometimes we make good connection and communication with managers, people that work with FIFA, etc. And upon the building of that, of course, success in placing a player somewhere is great, and your player performing obviously helps. But without all the other things, a lot of people think magic will happen. You sit down and you get a big player. No, it certainly doesn't work that way.
Okay, now I know that you also organize trials with different clubs for your players. How does that work? And I know that you also organize training sessions for your players. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And how does this trials usually work? If somebody's watching that, they might be interested, how can they get into these trials? If you can tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, thank you, Sheida. Proactive is what I call myself. Okay, so yes, I will sit in the office, read contracts, use my legal background to sort things out. Again, before that situation happens, you have to have players coming to you. You have to have relationships with clubs, relationship with coaches. So let me give you a breakdown so all of you will understand. My perspective is any player anywhere that has talent, I and my organization, Premier Footballers, have the ability to put that player in the right stage or give him the opportunity or she the opportunity to basically display themselves in a positive manner. Okay. So to do this, what we've done, we have invested quite heavily in number one, our network of coaches and scouts, our
Okay.
network of managers. We actually look after managers as well, so to
Oh, you
speak.
do?
Yep. And we also let obviously a lot of people know in the public some of these parents that maybe they lost, they have a child that they feel is great. We give them somewhere to obviously send their details through. Now, how we build on that is we've invested in paying for very large facilities with top coaches to come and train the players,
Okay.
give them an idea of how they need to play. Then we work with some psychologists and some former footballers to try and give players an example of the psychology. Because football is a very difficult profession. Okay, and if they don't have an idea of how to think and how to act, and some of the lows and highs, it can affect a lot of people. As I said, we also hire out large football pitches, and these at stadiums. And why we do that is when we find a good player, we've trained the player, we've identified them, we will then put them into games with other semi-professional or professional academies and teams. This will give
Okay.
them an experience of a big stadium, having some kind of crowd there, having
Wow.
order, formation, how to train, what to eat, and above all, give them a smile on their face as they have that kind of time period in the light where they're playing a competitive game in the same type of conditions and atmosphere as they may have. Now, within these, we'll also work very hard from a marketing perspective to make sure the scouts that will attend these games, we video the games as well, and obviously alert clubs to the best players, so to speak. So it's something that you have to love as well. You know, a lot of the top lawyers, especially that work in the game, sometimes they get players by accident, and they only need one player. One big player can make them several million. But generally, most of the top players, they're scouted. So if you want to get a new prodigy, a new top player, you have to get out and find them and sign them early before the big agencies, before the big clubs get them. It's the only way. Otherwise, you might be sitting down and again, these new FIFA rules were to stop things like, if I may give you an example, there's a player, maybe he's finished his contract and he's around 30 years of age. He already has an agent. That agent is lazy and wants to work with other players. So then he now talks to other agents. Those agents can't get him a job. So they work with another person. Then they do something called a mandate. This is to get permission to sell the player on. By the time you finish, there's about 5 to 10 people all trying to make some money from a player who's past his best to try and do a deal. There was a famous case once with Chelsea. A player
Okay.
was signed and up to 15 representatives turned up at the negotiations for the players, almost breaking that deal. It's a very famous player, so I can't mention his name, but
Okay.
that's the kind of example. So we don't want to be involved in that situation where you're dividing the commissions between 15 people. Half of them are going to all disappear because only one can really, manage the player and manage him professionally.
Yeah.
So the work is to find that next gem, that next star, wherever they are, whether they be in Africa, whether they be in Italy, whether they be in UK or America. My job is to use my network and try and find this player, develop him. If he's already developed to a high level, to try and find where we can market him and get him into a club where we can then begin our specialist negotiations for that player to represent them.
Okay. So if there is somebody now watching you and their dream is to become a professional football player. What is your suggestion to them? What advice can you give them? And how can they reach you?
Okay. First advice is love the game. Football is a passion. It's a love. You can't fake it
I
by
agree.
thinking I just want to make money. Because the pitfalls, the ups and the downs will stop you. Once you're at that level where you love the game and you treat it respectfully, to work hard, to play hard, then of course you need to find someone to represent you. First of all, make sure you're playing football. Okay, you're not a football player if you're not playing football. Whether it's for your local club, your local school, whatever, you need to be playing football. Then you can find agents like us. I mean, if you search Premier Footballers, yeah, which is on premierfootballers.co.uk, or you go online and find that, you will see other organizations like Love My Football Career, which is connected. These type of things give people an opportunity to contact by email, send your clips, maybe some information where you played, even sometimes some pictures, so we get an idea of what kind of person, how you look, whether you're 6 foot, you're your defender, etc. So get that information and send it across. And don't give up. If you have to keep on email. You can contact us on Instagram. You can contact us on LinkedIn. As long as you get information, we will contact someone back. But remember,
Okay.
information is everything. We get hundreds of emails probably a week. So the ones that give us some information, bit of video, look, everybody has a mobile phone these days. There's no excuse. You don't have to wait for BBC to come and film you. Your auntie, your uncle could take a phone, video some of your games. It's more
Yeah.
important, really. Put that on, send some information of your CV, and definitely will at least answer you back. And there'll be opportunities. We're in England, but we're doing things in Malta, soon in Italy. We have an Italian office, at Premier Footballers, and
Yeah.
they will get back to you. We want to find the next star. We want to
Okay.
find you. So it's your objective just to put the information out, and we have enough, how would I say, different avenues and ways to discover you, so to speak. There's many people like me who are agents that work hard. I want to find the players at what we call in England grassroots and
Yeah,
move
yeah,
them through to
grassroots.
success.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think that this is going to be a fantastic opportunity for, if you have somebody watching that they can contact you. And I really hope that you also would find that gem, because there are a lot of people I see, speaking with different young people, I see that there are a lot of them super passionate about football and they dream about one day becoming a footballer, but they do not have any practical way. They don't know what to do. And so, thank you so much for giving them this, at least this opportunity. So you told us that you don't only work in England, you have also an office in Italy. And do you work also around the world, or where do you mostly work?
At the moment, as I said, we have connections in Africa, Nigeria, and we have a small office there, which is just about to be manned. But there's scouts there already for us, already identifying top players for us. In Italy, we have our main second office and a team there, led by Mr. Paul O'Halloran, and they are looking for players right now. They're looking to find the next talent. Obviously, we're in the UK, and we have partnerships in various other countries. And this is how we like to link everything, to make sure we have a net, to make
Yeah.
sure that we catch any of the best fish, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah, because as you mentioned, football is a game that belongs to all the world and is an international game, and that's why, of course, you have the network that goes through all the world, from Africa to Europe, everywhere. And thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with me today and giving us all this insight into the world of you as a football agent. There are lots of very interesting information that you gave to us. A lot of things that I'm sure people like me, we don't know. And it was very interesting for us to hear what you had to say from the perspective of a football agent. Because as you mentioned, not everybody, not all the agents are bad, and not all the agents are the super agents like Raiola that we all heard about. There are lots of agents that they do the hard work, and they make this game to be so beautiful as it is. Thank you so much, Ugo.
No problem. Once again, thank you. And I'll also add one thing. No, we're not all super agents, but we all want to be super agents. So once again, I say thank you, and to your audience, enjoy. Keep on loving football.
Yes, keep on loving football. I agree with that. And good luck with you and Premier footballers. I will absolutely put under the in the information under the video all the information of your agency, so that hopefully one of our audience is going to see it, and if they are in love with this game, they're going to message you, and hopefully you're going to find your next gem. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much to all of you following us from near and far. Have a lovely evening, and I see you next week with Massimo. Take care. Bye.